I need my microphone. There we go. Hello and welcome back to another Island 54 development stream, where I'm continuing work on my survival crafting MMO. The netcode work I've been doing is still dragging on, but hopefully I'll be done with it pretty soon. I'm really keen to move on to other things. Before I get started today, though, I still need to work out what I was doing yesterday. I got distracted again yesterday afternoon by other higher priority things. But I might as well just kind of get some of these tests cleaned up because I noticed that I've got some broken tests. These tests are really easy to fix. I can actually delete these ones because this code no longer gets called. This is the uh, top block top averaging is the old code that was responsible for smoothing out the terrain when the terrain was being generated on the client side. I think I'm a little bit noisy. How's that? Yep, that looks better. Um, so this code, the block top averaging code no longer exists. I don't use it anymore. So I will in fact just delete this code. Otherwise I end up with dead code all over the place. So let's go and get rid of, I think we can get rid of this class. I'll just go through and find where things are being called from. Actually, removing this code, I'll wait until I've got a good commit. I haven't committed my code to source control in a little bit, so that probably wouldn't be the most sensible thing to do. I can delete the tests though. So I just have one failing test now. Test interchunk symmetry. I'll just quickly check what that's doing. Hello, random guy. Just fixing a test that I noticed was broken at the moment, and then I'll get back onto hopefully closing out my netcode changes. I'm really keen to get those finished. So this test, what's it trying to do? It creates a new axial coordinate starting at the origin. And then what does it do? It kind of goes, that's 8, I think. Yep, it goes 8 blocks in the RS direction. We then go one step further. We get a coordinate from that. Let's just get a breakpoint in here. I expect this to not be in the origin chunk. These two should be in the origin chunk. This one will be not in the origin chunk. But sure enough, when we go by one block in this direction and then one block back in the other direction, R1, what's R1? Yep. I do need to be excused. Oh, hello to random guy sister. I do need to be excused just for 2 minutes. I just need to check that everything's all good in our backyard. Just a bit of noise out there. Just one moment. And I'm back. It's all good. We have some pet chickens, and they were getting freaked out by something or other in a neighbour's yard. Okay. Um, so I'm just going to step through this code, just check what it's doing, see if this test makes sense. It's not making sense to me immediately. All right, let me just reason this through. A2 should be in another chunk. It will have a coordinate which is going to be Q will be 0, R will be 9, S will be minus 9. When we divide by chunk, I expect to get C1 will be some non-origin chunk. R1 will be, not sure exactly what it'll be, but it'll be it'll have large R and S components, I think. But then R1, when we come back the other way, yes, that should then step back again. Okay, this kind of makes sense to me. I notice the numbers are neck and neck again between Twitch and YouTube. Okay, I'll run this. I've got my breakpoint set up. So yeah, then we start by going 8 in that direction. We step one further, gives us 9 minus 9. Well, 0, 9, minus 9. We divide it. We get a non-zero chunk. And what's R1? Yep, minus 808. That's fine. No, this test is invalid. Welcome back, Chris P. Just fixing a test that's been broken for a while. Just because that way I've got all my tests will be green, which they should be. I should be putting more effort into keeping my tests passing. But yeah, this is something is not right here. Going back in the RS direction, this should be in the Q. Yes, direction. Yeah, I think that will make this test pass. Multiplayer almost works. Almost. The I can't remember exactly where I left it, but I've got I don't think the entities are actually coming through at the moment, and I can't remember why. I have to be honest, the reason I'm getting this test working is because I'm trying to put off actually working out what's broken. Oh, for your game. Congratulations, random guy. It's always rewarding getting a piece of work like that done. What's this doing? Something is not working. Run that. Go. Step through here. R2 is... No, this test is invalid. This was meant to be saying, hey, if we step off the edge of a chunk and then step back into the chunk in the same direction, but that's not how these coordinate systems work, because the chunk coordinate systems are rotated by 30 degrees from the rest of it. So I'm actually going to delete this test. It was an invalid assumption when I wrote that test. So that's the easiest way of getting a test passing. Just delete the code. Oh, I've got a few people coming in for so early in the game. Oh, we are getting entities loading. Just rerun this. So maybe it's my game as well, random guy. Maybe stuff is working. Okay, we have nothing inside there. So if I pick up a stone, we'll drop it down into here. Then I'll come out. I'll come in as a new user, and hopefully that stone will have moved. Yep, the stone has moved. So then the question is, can we see... two questions. One is, can we see the players moving, and are we constantly fetching entities? Yep, we're unfortunately constantly fetching entities, which is... So something is not working with my chunk invalidations. Because what's meant to happen is the server's meant to send the chunk invalidation, client is meant to fetch stuff, it's meant to send the acknowledgements back, and then the server should not be sending any data through because nothing's changing in the world. So let's go take a look at what the server is saying. Yeah, okay. So I had a shot at fixing this code yesterday. And yeah, let's just get this fixed up. Where's my... I'm just going to get rid of that log message. And then try and work out what is going wrong here. Find invalidation ref. So when it comes in here, it's trying to acknowledge... I think at this point, what's it trying to do? It's trying to construct a server message. And as part of that, it's looking at the last message that it saw from the client and processing any acknowledgements that came in. Part of that is to take the chunk invalidation acknowledgements. So we're trying to acknowledge 12 chunks. That's fine. That's expected. And that is going to come in here and what's this going to do? What is an invalidation reference? Just a coordinate and a message ID. Okay. And in here, we start off by getting the key. So we're trying to acknowledge an invalidation for chunk 20. Yeah, I'm a terrible animator 2 random guy. So we know that we have a chunk there. That's fine. Pending invalidations. We still have no pending chunk invalidation. So this is something I've written is clearly not being called or something like that. Pending chunk invalidations is meant to get set. Who's meant to set it? When we send out a chunk invalidation. So that happens here. Why is this not getting called? Okay, so we're in this piece of code where we're processing some entities. We've decided that we have too many entities. We're trying to add our 6th entity, and the rule I've set is we're not allowed to send more than 5 entities in a chunk. And so this just says drop all of the data for this current chunk because we're gonna send out an invalidation instead. But this should add an item to pending chunk invalidations. And sure enough, it does. We've added a chunk invalidation. It has some data. Which basically says for this message ID, we're trying to load in all of these entities. It feels like I've got too many there, but oh, well, that's wrong. Hold on. Okay, that will be slightly better, but that's not going to explain the issue I have. It's clearly pending chunk invalidations just here does have a value, right? Here's my... Can't I drag this up? Go. Pending chunk invalidations. Got this. Oh, that's just died. I'm going to have to restart the server. Is this all running? So this pending chunk invalidations is empty. We do that, and now we have a pending chunk invalidation. We keep coming through, we'll get more and more of them. It's all fine. So now when we go and find an invalidation reference, we do indeed have a pending chunk invalidation to apply. Hmm. Okay, if I just run through until we generate another message, and now look at what our client state is. Our client state is empty, despite the fact that I'm sure we've processed these pending chunk invalidations. So what's meant to happen when it sees an acknowledgement come in, it's meant to pull out the data for the chunk invalidation. That's not this code. It's meant to pull out the data for that it stored when it created the invalidation, and it's meant to apply it into the client state. I reckon this is going to be a pretty minor issue when I track it down. It's just going to be a missing assignment or something like that. Because I'm sure I've written this code. Okay, so when we find, let's just step all the way through. We'll get rid of this breakpoint so we don't keep on hitting it. We get an invalidation. We don't have an invalidation. Huh. Okay. This is a bit frustrating. We never seem to have any pending chunk invalidations. But I know we saw some earlier. I think it must be cleaning up after itself. Because we're clearly filling this out, right? We just saw it put something into pending chunk invalidations. Now, this particular function is generate message. So this is going to generate a chunk invalidation. Yep, here it is, generating that. Um, why are we hitting that breakpoint? There's like a breakpoint there, but I don't have a breakpoint. Okay, I might just have to step through this code. Um, all right. Generate message. I'm just going to have to step through all of this. We come through. We go through each of the entities. So we're trying to send out 215 entities. We can see just here. And it's going to generate deltas and stuff. This is all fine. What does it get after that call? Index should just be a nice big index. I expect it to have lots of chunk invalidations. Where's index? Index. It's got lots of chunk invalidations. That's all fine. Entity updates. Yep, we've got nothing in there. That's fine because we're sending absolutely everything through as an invalidation. This is all okay. Functions this generate message. Okay. So this is behaving as expected. The problem is clearly not in here. It's in here. So when we get to this line here, let's just rerun, come through to here. This is going to generate a delta, but the problem is the client state. So what it thinks is the client state. Where's that gone? This. No, not this. Client state. The client state is still empty, even though we have just processed a bunch of acknowledgements. Session.invalidation acts. We can see all of these. Why has it not applied those? And more to the point, well, once we generate a delta, I expect it to populate pending chunk invalidations. Excellent, that works. So when we come back around to this line here, I was expecting it to still have pending chunk invalidations. Ah, I think I see it. We've got this session object. We fetch the client state out of, I don't even know where this is coming from, but shouldn't matter. So we ask the state service for a copy of the client state. I bet you we never push that back out again. Client state, we do some stuff with it. Yeah, that's it. Await client service, client state service. There we go. I've never even written that code. Okay, let's write that code. That's a bit silly. So this just comes down to the fact that these services are stateless. Each time we generate a new packet, this function knows nothing about what it did last time. So yes, this needs to go off and pull the stuff out of Redis. Yep, we're going to do that. We're going to go client state dot. We need to know the session ID. Let's just copy this and I'll just have to change this line. This needs to do. No, we don't want to do an hget. We want to do an hset. Like that. That seems fair. No, I didn't random go. Okay, I think this will work. I'll need to change my code to call that correctly. We need to know the session ID. Oh, what did I just do? Ah. Okay. Let's just restart this. I think I'm going to have to do an earlier than normal caffeine break, which I'll take a 5 minute break very, very soon. Um, all right, let's get rid of some of these breakpoints because I just want to see if this works. Something's crashing. Doesn't like the generate message. That used to work. I'd say I've just corrupted something. I plan on doing a fairly long stream today, random go. Don't know exactly how long, but I imagine it'll be at least 3 hours, so at least another 2.5 hours. Um, okay, I'll get a breakpoint in here. No? Yep, there we go. Oh no, it's crashing somewhere else now, is it? What? All right, let's just get that stopped. I'll shut everything down, get ourselves a nice new database. I don't know what state things are in. Yeah, if something's corrupted in live controls edit, delete your database, I say. So we'll bring that out. Command prompt, bring the server down. That will recreate the database for me. A very noisy chicken in my backyard. I think I can hear a dog a couple of blocks over, and it's annoying the chickens. Chickens are probably annoying the dog. Okay, is this running? That looks like it's running. Yeah, the neighborhood is chaos at the moment. All I can hear is dogs and chickens. Um, okay. So what is client state? Client state is boring. And that's passing. We come through again. Now client state is more interesting. Because now we actually have these pending chunks. So if we get a message from the server, sorry, if we get a message from the client acknowledging these chunk invalidations, then then this will work. Let's just see what's coming through. We've got no invalidation acts. Something just crashed. What was that? This is frustrating. Client state.generate message is not a function. So obviously we're not able to pull out the client state for some reason. Here we have a client state. This must be a new one. Hit F9. It's very confusing. Okay, process acknowledgements. What's this? Line 117. What? So here it's complaining. Welcome back, Osleth. Process acknowledgements is not a function. Is that true? Sure, that's not true. Oh, it is true. Okay, I know what's causing this. This is kind of dumb. I'm trying to pull. I'm not sure how to do this. I've got this client game state. I'm trying to save it to Redis and pull the pull this object. Where's it gone? Pull this object back out of. Stop it. Client game state. Um, yeah, Oslath, just hopefully finishing off this netcode change. There's just this one last issue with acknowledging packets between the client and the server. I don't think there's much left. But yeah, so this is the object that stores all of the server-side copy of the client state and everything that's needed to update it as acknowledgements come in. It's trying to save it out to Redis, but when it's reloading it, it's not getting any of the functions, obviously. So it pulls out, we're just getting a plain object back. So I'm not sure what the correct way of doing that is. I mean, I could, back in here, what I could do is if not state, then if there's no state stored in our database, then yeah, we just return a blank one. That's fine. Do that. But otherwise, I actually need to return an object. How can I tell it to construct a new client game state? I mean, I could do something really dodgy like this. Not sure if that will even work. Well, the neighborhood animals have quietened down. That's promising. All right, now when we come in through here, let's just restart the server. Not a huge amount was missed, I don't think. Just me breaking stuff. Breaking stuff faster than I'm fixing it. Okay. So, yes, you missed lots of netcode failing. All right, what does this do? This returns a client state. Um, so this doesn't look right because we're going to... Oh, what was that? That was not where I was expecting it to fail. Yeah, it's still the same problem. All right, this is obviously just me not understanding something about Node. So let's just get a web browser, Node.js, deserialize class instance. I Oh, this makes sense. Yeah, no, it's not been a single thing, Osleth. It's just been a whole lot of different bugs. Lots of tests. I've done lots of testing, so um, things are looking a lot more stable. It's just this piece of logic that handles the acknowledgements. So the state it's in at the moment is it just keeps on, the server sends out chunk invalidations because there are too many changes to send through. The client is acknowledging them, but the server is not handling those acknowledgements properly, so it's not updating its local state, and then it just keeps on sending through, oh, you need to invalidate all your chunks. So we're stuck in a bit of a loop. So I think this is the correct answer. I think I just need to write a constructor that takes yeah, that takes an object and pulls its parameters out. Be able to post. Oh, this is just the same thing, isn't it? I hate it when people just scrape Stack Overflow and format it differently. Oh, here we go. Serialize and restore class instances. This is what I want. Yeah, okay. Let's do it. On the client state, client game state, I'm going to need another method. It's starting to get pretty big, isn't it? Oh, where's my OBS window? There it is. Um, okay. So in here, we do need a constructor. No, there's a default constructor. That's fine. I can use that. And then I'm just going to do a public static. What's the coding standard? The coding standard is from JSON. So something like that. And then this create a new client game state. And then we just set each of these. Is that all? Everything? Pending message IDs. I don't particularly like this just because it feels like it's, yeah, it feels like I'm asking to have, if I add another field in here, this code is going to break. But this will do. Now when we come in here, we don't want to do that. We actually want to return a client game state from JSON like that. Nope. Oh yeah, that's right. We just return an object. I'll be explicit about the return type. CGS. Okay. Something's not compiling. No, everything's compiling. Oh, wait, and my code's looking happier already? No? This might not be the end of the world. There is a case where it makes sense that the client will send two separate acknowledgements, and I expect to see these warnings if we get duplicate acknowledgements. So if we go back to here and look at our log message, well, I'll clear the log messages. No, we are still fetching all the entities every second. Still not there. But at least now, we just watch this code come through. Is that crashing? Yes, that's crashing. Why? No, that just looks like my dev environment messing up. That's all fine. We'll restart this because I have no idea what state the session's in at the moment. Wow, stuff is really not getting close to the ground, is it? There's clearly a bug somewhere in here. Okay, so client state in this case is we've got some pending chunk invalidations. That's fine. The messages, the state of the session, do we have any invalidation acts? Here we go. So the client has acknowledged 12 different chunk invalidations for the message ending in D65. Now, over here, we've got it's like about 12 chunk invalidations. Wow, that's a lot of data. Hello, Metalstorm. Welcome back. Oh, and Kings of Chaos League. Welcome to both of you. Helping the Twitch verse YouTube numbers. That is a lot of messages. So this is, just to be clear, this is not correct. And the reason this is bad, so the server is sending out heaps and heaps and heaps of chunk invalidations. And then what's happening is it's storing a copy of all the entity data for every chunk invalidation. And that's not correct. It's not meant to be doing that. So this is a whole lot of data getting stored in here. No, it's not much data. Well, that's not good. Why is there only a single entity? Yes, Twitch can see your messages. They appear very similarly to when you see the Twitch people chat. They get, it's Restream that comments them. Okay, let's just step through here. No, we can't step through there. I think we just lost our session. Okay, so I've got a couple of problems here. One of them is the fact that my client game state, if I can find the code, there we go, is storing too many copies of the pending chunk invalidations. These are fairly large objects, so I don't want to get that to go to there. Yeah, they've got a full copy of entity data. I only want to store the latest one. Otherwise, this is going to get really big. Um, so, okay, I'm going to ignore this for now. This is meant to be trimming. Uh, yeah, so I'm going to ignore the fact I've got duplicates. What I need to worry about is the next question, which is why do I only have a single entity in any of these? And that's going to be to do with when I generate the chunk invalidation, which is down over here. Um, what does it do? All right, here's the code that's probably wrong. Let's just get a breakpoint in there. Step down. We just populated pending chunk invalidations for 1-1. Pending chunk invalidations. Oh, I've got so much data here. But it's all just the same entity over and over again. Yet the reason we came into this code path was because we had too many entities. Ah, here it is. This is overwriting ink. We take the entities. I'm actually just sticking with a single repository for all of my microservices at the moment. They'll obviously need to get broken out at some point. Uh, the type of data being sent, well, in theory, it should just be a very, very small chunk invalidation, but the server needs to hold a copy of the data that was in that chunk at the time that it invalidated it. Um, so there's a very large blob of JSON getting generated here. And it's too big at the moment because I'm storing too many copies of the data. Um, okay, so this is going to go through each entity, find the entities that are in the chunk. Result is empty, but entities has 209 items in it. What about entities.filter? Okay, well, that's not good. Why do I only ever have a single entity coming up for that? Chunk is 1, 0, minus 1, 1, 0, minus 1. I'm going insane. I've got a couple of hundred entities. But somehow I've only got one single entity. Oh, that's not meant to be equals like that. Ah. Um, yeah, so the problem, I can demonstrate the problem here. Um, yeah, no, the issue is, I just spin up some node. Um, yeah, if we've got like x equals foo colon 42, or 53, there we go. And separately, I say y equals that. And then I ask, is x equal to y? The answer is false. So the issue is actually in here. I'm comparing these two chunks. But this will only ever be true on the entity that I'm processing at the point that I decide to turn the delta into a chunk invalidation. So this will only ever return the sixth entity because this is 5 just here. Max entities per chunk is 5. So when we process the sixth entity, we're pulling out its chunk and then we're finding all the entities with that same chunk. But none of the entities have the same chunk because of this fact here. So what I really need to do is I need to set current chunk to be a new chunk coordinate. I think I can do that. No. Um, ah, I basically need to call into an equality check. Um, these objects don't have IDs. So I'm trying to find all of the entities that are in the same chunk, and my chunks don't have IDs. So I actually just need to check um, the U and the V. Catch around, random guy. Yeah, so I just check each of the chunk coordinate components. So let's say that if we have a chunk, then I need to what can I do here? New chunk coordinate. This is going to be slightly messy code, but that's all right. We're going to do that. Bang.u. Same thing again. Bang.v. We know that these are defined because we're inside this condition. Otherwise, undefined. There we go. So now what I can do is I can come down here and I can say current chunk dot equals that. So I think I've defined an equality function. I have. Yeah, I think that needs a question mark. Like that. Chunk UVW, my coordinate system is a hexagonal coordinate system. UV and W are the three axes of the hexagonal coordinate system. So there's like one points upwards, another point's 120 degrees from that, and another point's 120 degrees from that. U, V, and W are my chunk coordinates, and Q, R, and S are my hex coordinates within a chunk. So it's a bit confusing, but it's to that. Do that. What am I missing here? Oh, it's just an extra. What's this doing? Can't get this to compile. Why not? Semicolon expected. Why? It's going to change this to an E because otherwise I'm obscuring the outer one. I don't mind single letter variables in lambdas. Um, okay, now this is easy. I can just say chunk-like object. Um, there we go. All right. I will close my client. Yeah, it's funny with the hex coordinates. I've gotten to the point where I still don't fully, I don't have the model for the coordinate system straight in my head, but I've gotten to the point where I don't care anymore. And I just accept that there are these components. I treat them kind of like X's and Y's, and the system just kind of works. I've got enough testing and I've built up enough reliability in the code that I trust that they work. So I don't need to have the model straight in my mind. It's a slightly weird feeling. Okay. It's still fetching on every chunk, on every tick. Um, It's still complaining over here that it can't find the invalidations. So I'll just breakpoint, put in a strategic breakpoint somewhere. Um, uh, find chunk invalidations. That's probably a good spot to breakpoint. So we're looking for a bunch of different acknowledgements ending for a message ending in ADA. This is going to be huge. There's one ending in ADA. So this doesn't look terrible, except I've got this this pending messages has, oh, sorry, pending message IDs has nothing in it. That's not good. Um, it's really important that this store all the message IDs that we've generated that haven't been acknowledged yet. Otherwise, we can't clean up this array, this object here. Still not the end of the world because this should be able to find this particular set of invalidation acknowledgements. So come back through here. Invalidation refs, unfortunately, is empty. That is not what I wanted to see. So clearly there is something wrong in this reducer. Let's just run into the reducer. I assume refs is empty. Yes. We are looking for this ACK, which is chunk 2, -1. Pending chunk invalidations 2, -1. I'm expecting a message ID still ending in ADA. There it is. So it should be acknowledging that one. Do we get it? Ref is undefined. So this must be where the problem is. I'm so looking forward to being done with this particular piece of code. This dot pending chunk invalidations. Yeah. Chunk key, so that should get out a list of invalidations. That's fine. Oh, I think I can already see it. I think it's this line just here is wrong. Grab it. Yeah, it didn't find it. And the reason is this is meant to be invalidations. Got it. Like that. No, not quite there. Ah, no, that was correct. Yeah, can't find message ID for invalidation a chunk that. That's we were seeing this message before. I wish I had read the message now. I think Oslath just got censored. there's a word missing there, and I think that YouTube might have done it. Oh, okay. No, it was just a missing. I thought that there was in the middle of your sentence. I thought there was a swear word taken out. But no, just a partial sentence. Okay, so I know what the problem is here. This pending message IDs is not getting populated, but this is key to the cleanup. So we can't do our cleanup unless we know the order that the messages came in. So this is pretty straightforward. All I need to do is set this when we generate the message. What's going on here? Generate message. We generate a message. And then pending message IDs push. Message ID. I think that's it. Something has crashed. That's not my fault. One of these days I'll get to the bottom of why I just lose the debug connection to my node processors. But that day is not today. All right. Disconnect this. Come through here. Still can't find it. Oh, who knows what state that connection is in. I'm just going to bring everything down. That stopped. Bring down my database. Bring up the server. Then connect. Yeah, fall through the ground the first time it generates the terrain. That's normal. Invalidation has 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, a whole bunch of message IDs. That's about right. We're trying to do an acknowledgement for one ending in 809. That's over here. This dot pending message IDs is empty. That's not what I expected. Definitely not what I expected. What? Oh, ouch. We've got multiple return paths, so I probably want to register that message as soon as we've created the ID. There we go. Hold on, what's happening here? This looks suspiciously like it's working. I'll connect a new client. I'll restart the server, connect a new client, make sure it's not just something that's crashed. So the effect I'm expecting here is the client should go and fetch entities for a whole bunch of chunks. We should get about 10 log messages saying it's fetched about 20 entities. And then it should not do it anymore. It might do it a second time if there's a weird race condition, which is totally reasonable. Um, so it's loaded some meshes, loaded a bunch of entities, and that's it. I don't know what the packets are with bad hashes. I need to look into that. Um, I do sometimes see that. I don't know what causes that. That could unfortunately explain this behavior, though. Yeah, look, even after I've stopped the game, I'm still getting these log messages. All right. Most likely, I think the most likely cause of that is when I've got a stale session and the server keeps on sending packets to the client with the wrong session ID from the client's point of view. Um, yeah, it's a bit like that at the moment, Oslath. And while the behavior's right, I'm still not quite done with this piece of code because I'm still creating a copy of all of the entities that the player can see or should be able to see every single time I send out an invalidation. So when I turn the tick frequency up to 10 hertz, that's going to, if you've got a second of latency in the system, just because someone's got a slow internet connection, that means that that's going to be storing 10 copies of all of the data against that player, which is not good. Or worse, when a player disappears, if we waited like a minute for them to reconnect, then there's going to be like 600 copies of the data. Okay, we've brought the database down, run the server. That looks stable. We're not getting error messages anymore. Hit play, and fingers crossed. Yeah, that's normal. Received all the meshes. Oh, I really don't like this. Getting packets with bad hashes. All right. What is the hash that it's expecting and the hash that it's getting? It's expecting a 0. I do only want to keep one copy of the change metal storm. It's a bug in my current code. Well, it's a missing piece of code. I just need to do the comparison to make it realize that it doesn't need to. It does need to keep a copy if any of the data changes between sending out the chunk invalidations because it doesn't know which version the client is going to acknowledge. But if I see that I already know I've already got that same copy of the data, there's no point in storing it a second time. So yeah, it's just a missing piece of functionality at the moment. So I should point out as well that my current code that does the cleanup, it is written to be resilient to multiple messages sharing the same state. So that should work just fine. Um, okay. So I'm trying to. What's this code? That looks like a debug. Yeah, so that shouldn't be there. I'll have to delete that line. We've got payload bytes. What is payload bytes? Payload bytes is empty. So this is actually promising. An empty payload bytes is exactly what I expect to see if this code is working, because the server believes it's synced up everything. So there is no need for it to send any more data through, but it will send an empty packet to say, hey, I don't have any data for you. So our expected CRC is 0. Whereas the hash is actually -1. Hmm. I wonder if this is just a difference between the CRC implementations on my client and my server. I mean, they work just fine when I'm sending CRCs for data. I'm just going to get rid of that line. Shouldn't make any difference. I'll confirm that the server is indeed sending the right value. Datagram generator, here it is. Datagram generator, it has a control word, generates the hash of a payload. Oh, this doesn't look right. Generate delta line 80. So I wonder if I'm sometimes getting not source attributes. I am. So we've got a source component, which is just a scatter component. This is just a component I use to mark something as being generated as scatter, but it has no attributes. So yeah, all right, that's fair enough. All right. No, better yet would be to do that up in here. Ah, where's it gone? Attributes changed. Yeah, I'll just default it to an empty object. Whether or not that was the issue, I have no idea. Start everything back up again. Going back to your comment, Metal Storm, where you said, can't you just keep one copy of the change? Why do you need a full object for every change? So the particular piece of code I'm doing here is when the packet generator has decided that it's about to send too much data. And it's actually sending, rather than sending deltas to the player for a particular chunk, it's actually sending an invalidation. So it's sending a very short piece of data through to the client saying, just go and fetch this over REST. And then what it does is it actually stores that chunk data against, it just stores that on the server. And I could store deltas, but the most likely reason that these invalidations go through is because the client holds no data for that chunk. So yeah, I think it'd be premature optimization to store it as a delta, and you might as well just store that copy of the chunk. So yeah, I slightly misread your message before. But the bug at the moment is that it's storing multiple copies of that chunk data. Okay, so here it's sending out a payload, massive payload. No, I don't even know what that payload was. Okay. Big payload going out. These payloads look too big. Why are these payloads so big? What's going on here? Something's not making sense. Okay, what's the message I'm encoding here? 11 entity updates? Why am I sending any entity updates? It's a bit weird. Keeps on sending out 11 updates. Why? All right, I'm just going to have to put that on my to-do list. That's not my to-do list. Um, it feels like we're sending like one entity per chunk or something silly like that. For anyone who was here yesterday, they might actually recall that there was a I've seen this bug before. Yeah, I'll fix that in a second. I'm nudging myself apparently. They might have seen a bug where the rather than all the trees and stones showing, there was like a single tree per chunk, and they were flickering. Oh, that ghost player is very annoying. Uh, okay, so I've got a question. Why are we sending 11 entity updates? I need to ignore the player ghost. I'm going to do that first. Ignore the player ghost. It's normally really straightforward. When when we get a message come in, which happens in here. Yeah, that's I considered that approach, Metalstorm. And I may end up going down a similar route at some point in time. Um, but my concern is that the store will grow indefinitely, obviously. Um, uh, but I may go down a similar path of treating it as a log. Um, it does make a number of things a lot easier. Obviously, anytime you need to do a rollback because I don't know someone's um, an operation that with multiple parts to it has failed, and you need to roll back part of that operation. It's much easier if you have that transactional data. Um, yeah, okay, that's an interesting approach. Interesting approach, Metalstorm. Uh, but yeah, mine stores just the latest version and modifies everything in place. Um, then for each client, I store a copy of the data that I believe the client has, and then I send through deltas. I fetch the current state on every tick and send through deltas. Obviously, a lot more computation, but I'm not too worried about the amount of computation at the moment. Okay, so over in here, I've got my uh, UUID. I've got something where I check that the player. God, this code's messy over here. Um, where do I process message from server? Here it is. This needs um, new UUID dot string. No, not just new UUID. Welcome back, random guy. God, it must be late over there. Okay, I think that will fix the ghost player problem. I swear I've made that change like about 3 times over the last 2 days. I think I must accidentally revert the change. And no, still got it. Maybe? Stop it. Stop. uh, oh, I know what this will be. Oh, I was going to say it's when things come in as a chunk invalidation. Okay, I'll look at my server message. I have no chunk invalidations. I've got some updates. Um, what is my entity ID? It ends in 583. Um, Metal Storm, I actually don't agree. If I recall correctly, you're you basically shard on chunk. Um, because mine doesn't shard on chunk, the it will scale linearly. So um, I store a relatively fixed amount of data per player. Um, sure, if there's a lot of entities around them, that will increase a little bit. But when I'm generating a packet, I just have to have access to that state for that individual player. Um, and so I can, I basically need a number of UDP transmitter services that is proportional to the number of players, which is a scalability I'm totally comfortable with. Um, it doesn't increase with like the square. Um, it, it does take a little more memory if everyone does congregate in the same place at the same time, but I think that'll be an issue anyway because if players can see lots of players, you have to send more data through anyway. Um, but with my way of breaking up the microservices, I don't believe there's a scalability issue with this approach. Basically, each run around the loop for me is independent for a given player. So yeah, it should just scale. If I need a transmitter service per 100 players, then and I've got 1,000 players on, then I just need 10 copies of the transmitter service. I don't know what the actual numbers are, but that's just an example. Um, okay, let's just get this running again. Just need to work out why I'm not ignoring player updates. I've hit a breakpoint, haven't I? Maybe. Why's my game locked up? Welcome to NAS. Currently debugging the netcode for my survival crafting MMO and running into some sort of a problem over here. Can't even run the game. Why can't I run the game? There we go. The player is still getting nudged. Hit this breakpoint. Player entity ID ends in 85. So it's not this one. Oh, these are around the wrong way or something? Oh, what have I done here? I got some bad conversion code. I thought I had bugs like that ironed out. My zero padding's wrong. This is back to front. Hearing strange sounds outside your kitchen. Minecraft 2.0. I don't have the my daughter in Australia. We've just had Father's Day go past. My daughter made a mug. I don't have it with me at the moment. And I thought she had drawn Minecraft onto the mug, but it was actually my game. I thought was quite nice. So it's just some undulating hills and a tree on top of one of the hills. I thought it was really quite sweet. A really nice Father's Day present. Um, okay. Why is ID back to front? So I must be doing this in the wrong order. Um, I thought this code was old and well and truly tested. We get high and low. Thanks for the follow there. I presume it's pronounced Carmex. Thanks for the follow. Okay. How on earth does this code not work? I'm obviously doing something in reverse order. Let's see. I take the low byte. Yes, this is around the wrong way. I've got two things around the wrong way here. This is meant to be +8 because the low goes at the end of the array. So it needs to go later in the array. Then we've got this, and then there's more to it than that. Is that right? Metal Storm. Say I'm splitting. Say I've got thousands of players across hundreds of chunks, all running around, creating, crafting, attacking each other. Yep. Um, Machines. Basically, what is actually working out the game state, tick by tick. Yeah, I do use ticks. Um, I don't loop through each chunk because I've got infinite number of chunks. Um, uh, so what I actually do is I I iterate through all of the entities that require processing. So an entity that requires processing might be a mob. Um, uh, it might be a player who has executed a command, so initiated some crafting or something like that. And so what I do is I iterate through those, and then I distribute that work out through a queue out to instances that that I call ticker instances. So they just run the tick logic. So the tickers just pull items off that queue. And so each tick, I throw the thousands of players and presumably thousands of mobs. I throw them onto that queue on every given tick. So as that queue size increases, because load is increasing, I can increase the number of ticker services so that I can make sure that I get through the work within within 100 milliseconds. Yeah, so nothing actually iterates through the chunks. The kind of exception to that is when I'm passing the data off to a ticker service, it does go and fetch data out of the entity store that is local to the entity being processed. So that like if you're running mob AI, the code that's going to run the mob AI does get a copy of all the entities that are near the troll, so that you can use that to help it do its logic. But yeah, I don't do any splitting based on chunk. Um, Ideally, I would do some grouping by chunk. So if there are two pieces of AI in the same chunk, then it would make sense to group those together. I'm not currently doing that. Executing them together would save fetching a whole bunch of extra entities out of the entity store, is why you would want to do them together. Um, I should also point out I'm intending to, I'm not doing it yet, but I'm intending to kind of unload any AIs that don't have players near them. So there's no point in executing logic for a troll that no one can see. Um, and they can just be marked as unloaded, and then you got the choice either when they do get loaded again because a player gets close to them, you can either just start executing them again, or you could even go and say, well, how long's it been idle for? And just generate some new state for it to simulate that amount of time passing. Um, but I'll probably go down the Minecraft route of things just when they're unloaded, they just don't execute. Okay, does this work? Um, step out. How do I step out? Step in, step out. Um, on and off, I've been working on this for about 5 months, I think. It's still got a lot of work to go. Hell of a lot of work to go. That is still broken. Um, oh, this might not have recompiled. Let's just kill it. Um, two commands at the same time. How do you determine which ones wins? That's up to the entity service. Um, so no, I don't hold a lock time that the at the time the logic starts running. But when it goes to make the change into the entity service, only one of them will win. So it's using uh, when you write out, it can check. No, that's fine, Metal Storm. When I write out to the database, I do a conditional write. So this hasn't been implemented yet, I should point out, but I I can write out saying only write this change if a particular attribute on an entity has this particular value. So you can use it for sort of pseudo versioning. You imagine a version key being set to, 42, and then two things try to write it out. One of them will increment that value to 43, and it'll say, oh, but only make these changes if the old value was 42. The next one goes to write it out. Similar to e-tags, yes. Next one goes to write it out, says only write this out if it's 42. Entity service refuses to make that change for that second one, and so it knows that it's failed to make that right. And then it knows that it has to roll back whatever it was doing. Um, okay, so your tunas, yeah, MMOs do take years to make with a team. My hope is to have the main infrastructure working and just get some testing of the some of the gameplay mechanics I have planned, um, uh, so that I can work out whether or not I can start pitching to get a team, um, or put a few more resources in myself. Um, okay. Back to your question, actually. Your assumption with the number of messages, right? Yeah. Uh, yes, although the way that I'm going to be doing the queuing is like really dumb at the moment, but the way I'll be doing the queuing, because the queue doesn't change all that much on from tick to tick, I'm going to be using a feature in Redis. Um, Basically, it will have a I'll generate a queue in Redis itself, um, with the thousands, possibly tens of thousands of items in it, and then on each tick, it will duplicate that. So uh, there'll be stuff that is in that queue that doesn't need to be processed on a tick. but then they'll be really fast to process. But it means I don't need to manage that queue as much. So rather than enqueuing each of those items, it'll actually just take a copy of a predetermined pessimistic queue and then process that on each tick. And then when something needs to be added to the queue that wasn't already on it, you add it to the copy of the queue. It's like the master copy of the queue, so that it'll get processed on each tick after that. But with thousands of players, certainly tens of thousands of messages being processed each each tick, I'd say. Um, yeah, definitely more than thousands per tick, maybe tens of thousands per tick for thousands of players. Depends on how many people are kind of combating whatever. Um, yeah, I think the thing that's really time consuming. I mean, I'm pretty happy with how quickly I'm getting through the kind of the MMO networking tech side of things. But other than that, you need a compelling story, a compelling world, and that's the stuff that's really time consuming. Um, you look at some MMOs like uh, EverQuest is the one that springs to mind. EverQuest and EverQuest 2. They've just got so much lore in them, and towns and things like that. Games like Eve, maybe not quite as much lore, not as many items, uh, but I'm certainly going for something more along the lines of EverQuest than Eve from an immersion point of view. Okay, now I need to test this code. Um, uh, so we'll get this running again. And yeah, no worries, Metal Storm on the explanation. It's quite interesting because we are doing things very, very differently. So I'm quite interested in finding out more about your approach at some point too. Even Amazon can't handle thousands of players on one server. Okay, what have I got here? I've got this here. Oops, something broken. I've got a feeling I'm getting exceptions. Yep, I'm getting exceptions. Out of range. um, Microservice would just split that up. Yeah. So with those tens of thousands of messages, the only question in my mind is how many microservices would be needed. Um, and basically what would the cost be of supporting 1,000 players or 10,000 players? And because you can't, there's some number of dollars you could make from a player in a month. And assuming free to play, like Eve or the EverQuest later on, uh, you might have like a $10 a month subscription, but only maybe 20% of people pay for that. So you're earning $2 per player per month. Can you profit from that? Is the question in my mind. But fortunately, there are 101 ways of optimizing code like this so that you can reduce the infrastructure costs if they are too high. Okay, where are we at here? Is this working? Please be working. It's not working, is it? Multi-threading solves everything stage of developing. Unfortunately, not when you're doing TypeScript or Java. JavaScript. Um, you're mostly restricted to um, single thread, with some exceptions. Okay, excellent. We have gotten rid of our ghost. That is good. Okay, I'm going to take a 5-minute break. I was meaning to do that an hour ago. Just need to grab myself some coffee. I'll be back in 5. Let me just update my details. What am I doing? Grabbing coffee. Back soon. Excellent. I'll be back in less than 5. Oh, right. That was less than 5 minutes. Um, yeah, players themselves hosting the MMO. The issue there um, is if you're trying to build a game that requires a large community, um, then yeah, as Metalstorm points out, you need a lot of infrastructure, um, and you can't basically do peer to peer because certainly my game design, my server design, does assume very low latency um, within the data center between the services. Uh, there's no way you could possibly have this stuff working if there was, like 10 milliseconds of latency between a ticker service and an entity service, for example. Um, so yeah, that unfortunately isn't viable for this style of game where yeah, I'm really hoping that a large community will be a driving factor behind the economics of the game and things like that within the economics within the game. Okay. Um, where was I at? I had another thing to fix, which was I'm storing too many copies of the entity data when I'm putting out chunk invalidation events. And that is, oh, this class is getting too big. This is my refactor of some other code, and it's already starting to get absolutely huge. Generate the index. I think that's already being done. Am I not? I'm not generating deletions. Okay, I'm going to have to. Yeah, I'm not generating deletions. That is a bug. Generate deletion deltas. Is that true? That's not true. Generate delta generation generates deletions, doesn't it? Yes, this is able to generate deletions. So this can actually go away. Client state, that is actually what this code is doing. Okay. So this is the point that I store a copy of the state. Yeah, if I was EA, I'd get the players to run it and just charge them extra for the privilege. That would be the EA way of doing it. Okay. Yeah, ping is always an issue, but the the issue I was referring to before is latency within the server cluster. Um, and there are parts that I've designed so that they're less critical. So my UDP services don't rely so much on low latency. So um, uh, I could scatter UDP services all around the world so that people will connect to a service close to them, um, leading to better latency because things can be a little bit cached at the UDP transmitter and receiver side. But then all of the entity services and ticker services and the terrain services need to be centralized. The service would just start to perform really badly if they were distributed. But certain parts of my stuff certainly can be distributed, especially the UDP stuff. So things like this code I'm writing here could do are absolutely fine with a little bit of latency built into them. I'm just gonna press my coffee. But you wouldn't want to run something like this over a retail internet connection, for example. There's a big difference between running over a local ISP versus running inside Amazon or Azure or one of those services and keeping your services close to them. You still get really good latency across those networks. Basically, best case latency and guaranteed huge throughputs. All right, so I need to do this conditionally, right? Um, so I'm going to pull this out into a separate method. Current chunk. Oh, wow. Wow, IntelliJ. uh, dear. Just refactor this a little bit. But you know that's defined. This makes a guarantee that it will return a valid key if this is defined. Yeah, that typing on that, I mean, it was literally just a chunk coordinate was the type. I don't know why why it generated that huge block of TypeScript. Um, okay. Entity, I don't think I need entity, do I? No, I don't need entity because that can just be current chunk, which means that can go away. Okay. Um, current chunk and that. Let me get rid of that. A little bit of a refactor, just getting this looking a bit prettier. Yeah, I'm trying to refactor to simplify the code, not introduce types like whatever on earth that was. Catch around us, Lath. I do apologize to all the Americans for the timing of my streams. I know it's not easy, and Europeans for that matter. My timing doesn't work. There's a problem with Australia. Our times don't work with anyone. Okay. So what I need to do in here is I need to work out whether or not we need to generate a new pending chunk invalidation. Um, Now, I guess all I need to do is say, is the previous if I take the last message ID attached to this, so like object dot I can't remember what it's called, entries on that. Thank you so much for joining in, Tunes. Catch you around. I'll be streaming every day this week. But yeah, thank you very much for joining. Can't type. So what I'm doing here is just checking whether or not the last invalidation we sent through for this, is there a previous one? And if so, is the data the same? Why is that not data? Pending chunk invalid. Oh, let me put a bookmark here because otherwise I'm not going to find it again. Pending chunk invalidation has that. Oh yeah, it's not data. It's just a map of entity IDs. Does entity have an equality operator on it? No. um, I should probably implement an equality operator here. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I think that um, I think Lodash has a deep equality on it, doesn't it? Um, yeah, I'm just going to cheat here. Use Lodash. Will I cheat? No, it's going to come back and bite me. It's going to come back to bite me if I cheat. So I will just implement on the entity. Ah, except entity is a type, not a class. All right, cheating it is. Okay, then I just need to import Lodash. So if the previous chunk invalidation is equivalent to this one, then there's nothing to do, right? So let's instead reverse the sense of this. Flip. And then do that. There we go. No, I don't like the way it did that. If values.length is equal to 0, or they're not equal, that's better. Then register the chunk invalidation. All right. I've got a good feeling about that. I mean, hey, 40 lines of code. What could possibly go wrong? 40 lines of untested code. Then, to test it, make sure the service is running and stable. Yep, it is stable. Spin up the client. Make sure that things kind of work. Oh, that's not a good sign. No, something is unhappy. Oh, yeah. Line 180. Undefined or something? Yep. There we go. We've got all of that. Hopefully we're not refetching every second. Excellent. So then all I've got to do to test it, because I can't be bothered writing unit tests for any of this stuff, is if I just get a breakpoint, if I make it so that the client just never sends any acts back out. Let's do that. So if the client never sends any acts, then the server should just start caching up. Well, it should start sending out lots and lots and lots of those. And if we come in here, we don't have any crashes. That's a good sign. And then all I want to do is just breakpoint somewhere in here. Somewhere sensible. Just a chunk invalidation. Generate message. And I'm expecting the pending chunk invalidations to not have lots of message IDs in it. Ah, node process crashed. One of these days, I'm going to get to the bottom of that. Still crashed. Wait for it to be stable. That looks stable. Breakpoint, please don't crash. It didn't crash. Excellent. Pending chunk invalidations. Grab one at random. Oh, that's a problem. We're not getting any in here. That's definitely not what I was expecting. All right, so how's that happened? Well, it must have generated them. I think I'm going to leave this here for now because it's going to be too much of a pain to test. I'm not sure why this didn't why this didn't trigger it to not acknowledge anything. But if there's something wrong with this code, it's going to become apparent pretty quickly. So I'm going to assume that that is my netcode changes, my latest round of netcode changes done. So I'll probably finish up my stream pretty soon. I need to think about what I'm going to do next. My current goal is to get the game to a point where people can competitively harvest trees in the presence of trolls. So the game will spawn in trees, not the way it is at the moment. I want it to be a bit more clumpy, so that I've described it in my previous devlog episode as the players having to go off and find a copse of trees. There'll be trolls there, and those trolls will... you'll have to fight off those trolls. Now, the 2 bits of code I need to be able to support that are... I need the concept of biomes. So that's one thing for me to work on. I'm just going to make a note off screen. I need to implement biomes, and I need to give the players a way of hitting the trolls. So player combat. So at the moment, players can get hit by trolls, but players don't have a way of hitting trolls. Once I have that, I'll be able to demonstrate that myself, but then I also need a way of getting you guys into the game. So the other thing I need to work on, and this will be a bit of a change of pace, I need to work on deploying this to the cloud. Let me just get this stuff onto the screen. Just go like that. There we go. So I need to deploy out to the cloud, and I also need a way of you guys being able to like register and download the game. So I might do that through Itch, but I'm not sure how registration will work then. I may just create my own website that people can register on, because I want to have sort of a lottery system. I don't want like 50 people all playing it at once when it first gets deployed, because otherwise it's 99% sure going to crash, and that won't be much fun for anyone. So that is my current plan. I think that's the order I'll do it in. Biomes, player combat, deploy to the cloud, and then make a website. So I'm going to finish up here. Thank you everyone for joining me. I think that was a fairly productive stream, that one. and it was great to have lots of chat going on. I'll be streaming same time tomorrow when I will get started on biomes. So thank you again, and hopefully catch you all tomorrow.